Hello my friends, let's go to the front lines updates. This is the Pokrovsk-Dobropilia direction. As you might see, Ukraine continues its successful counterattack, trapping Russian forces in Kucherov Yar. Plus, we have good report from Nikaronivka village, and according to the information coming, Ukraine could have already cut this supply line for Russians, so Russians could be trapped in two of the spots. But I am still checking out this info. I think that now Ukrainian military command should come out with conclusions and send new reinforcements, regular forces, not emergency forces like Azov. Yeah, Azov still continues its operation, but soon they're gonna finish it, and maybe their help is required in different direction. For example, not far away from this area, we see the Russian assault from Popiev Yar. But in Zoloty Kolodets, Ukraine absolutely should close the gaps in defense, because this defense line is crucial for entire Donbass. And in this particular case, the information about the Russian breakthrough went all around internet. Experts, bloggers, YouTubers were all speaking about this breakthrough. Russian side, Ukrainian side, West, East. That's why Ukrainian military and political command will point out their attention to this topic, a lot of attention. So I'm sure that in this area defense will be fixed and next Russian assaults will not be that successful. You see, Russians decided to risk with that strike. At first they were successful. They saw, okay, we broke through Ukrainian defense. We need to send hundreds of more of the infantry. And they sent like more than 1,000 soldiers were in those bunny ears. But somehow they failed to create the bridgehead in the most fortified area. Well, maybe because supplies were after all irregular, because of the natural obstacle, river, because of this very thin attack line. So Ukraine is capable to target them from all of the sides using FPV drones and not only. And I would say more, Russians didn't plan this operation. It is already understandable. They were just looking for the weak spot in Ukrainian defense. They found it, and the local commander decided to send more reinforcements. And after it, the high-rank Russian military command saw this breakthrough, and they commanded to send even more reinforcements. But in this case, it didn't help, because the important thing, after all, are supplies. So I may say that it was the major breakthrough of the Russian army and at the same time the major defeat of the Russian army here. However, again, we may see the attempts of the Russian army to get more ground from Popiev Yar, and it is happening before this river. So the supply lines for the Russian army are more or less robust, and they take the ground before. They took Poltavka and they propelled here, and for the last 24 hours they advanced in this small patch. So absolutely Ukraine should point out the attention at this specific topic. However, this area is basically located between two rivers. Again, one river goes like that and the other one goes through those lakes over here. So from the geographical perspective, Russia is limited here. For this attack, they had no obstacles, just supply obstacles, yeah, the same river. And here we see the update from the deep state military map. Again, they say about the Russian army movement from the Popiev Yar yesterday and today. We see the advancement, but this is obviously good to see those blue areas with Ukrainian counterattack, especially as we see locked Russian army. It's awesome. In my first video about this particular situation, I called it urgent. I say that Ukraine should send emergency reinforcements, and it would be a miracle if Russian army stopped here, but it was not just stopped, it was demolished. Well, at the same time, the deep state military map team analytics say that the situation for Ukrainian army is still difficult, even in this direction. Also, analytics from deep state and in fact mentioned that the situation was definitely catastrophic for Ukrainian army at the very beginning of the breakthrough. Then Russians moved by at least 15 kilometers. They also say that the Ukrainian army is using capable forces in Tyotkina, Kursk Oblast of Russia, so maybe it's better to say those guys here in the most important direction for Ukrainian defense of Donbass. The same question we had before in the Kursk region with all of this Kursk operation. And yes, the biggest success for now is Nikaronivka. If Ukraine definitely cut the Russian supplies here, it would be a catastrophic situation not for Ukraine but for Russian soldiers trapped in this case. And guys, we have new situation in Kupiansk, Kharkiv Oblast with this big Russian offensive. Recently they tried to offend once again, using even armored vehicles, and as the line for their advancement they chose the railroad. Here it goes, directly to the central part of Kupiansk. And I have the video to show you. Those were definitely Russian armored vehicles. In the front, it could be even tank, but you may see what happened, right? Both of the vehicles were stopped at the same place and later on finished. Yeah, actually it was MTLB. But there were several of those vehicles. Good job, Ukrainian defenders, great job. Well, later on Russians sent even tank, and tank was also kaputted by Ukrainian drones. You may see the last selfie of the tank. So we have two of the outcomes here. Ukraine definitely monitors the situation with the front lines using surveillance drones and reacts at the proper time. Plus, Russia really wants to offend inside Kupiansk city itself, using even armored vehicles and tanks, but those are the easy prey for Ukrainian drones, as you might see. And here is one more video. So one tank, another one, and two BMPs. Yeah, definitely big convoy. At first I thought that there were three of the vehicles, but now I see at least four. The Russian infantry which landed from the vehicles was also chased by Ukrainian drones, but I cannot show you those images here. And yeah, guys, sorry, according to the latest data, it happened not at this railroad, but it happened here, on the Russian-controlled territory, not far away from Liman, Persia. We have the geolocation, a new one. I thought Russians moved their vehicles here, sneaked to Radkiivka, and later on tried to attack from this side. It would be at least some sort of the logical, but moving directly through this railroad, for what reason? In Sinkivka there is the strong, robust Ukrainian defense. I know it because I monitored the situation with the front lines. Russians tried to attack and take Sinkivka for almost 2 years, unsuccessful. For this small village, really they wasted thousands of soldiers, not hundreds, thousands, and dozens of the vehicles, tanks and so on. For 2 winter campaigns they tried to attack it, to take it under control, but no, unsuccessfully. So I wonder why they go from this direction in general, because it's very secured, it goes through the woods. I would say this is more profitable for Russia, because they were recently successful here. Well, in general, the situation in Kupiansk is also kind of hard, especially when Russia crossed this river and created this bridgehead, and they use it for the further strikes. So here's the map with the geolocation. Russian convoys were ambushed. So at first 1 tank and then 3 of the armored vehicles. It happened like that. Ukraine also continued to strike Russian logistics in the Kursk region. So here is the Russian Ural with artillery system. Ural was kaboomed together with a bridge, which was also kaboomed before. Magura Brigade does the stuff, trying to cut Russian supplies in the Russian region, which is bordering Sumy Oblast. So you see, Ukraine is forced to use its army all across the front lines, hundreds and hundreds kilometers long, so Ukraine, with the current resources, is unable to secure every freaking spot. That's why there are the places with a weak defense, and Russia is searching for those, trying to propel forward. But sometimes, as it happened in Davydov direction, those attempts may fail miserably. Because of the significant losses in the Russian army, many of the Russian soldiers refused to fight because they were brainwashed by the Russian propaganda for easy money in Ukraine, but the Russian midwave attack realities hit them really hard. And you may see they are delivered to the front lines in the handcuffs, because Russian commanders are afraid that they may run away. They are now united, chained, crazy. The guy who is filming say that they are not criminals or something, but they just say that they refuse to fight, they don't want to die, and yeah, here we go. I would say it's not the worst variant for the Russian soldiers, because sometimes Russian commanders, they tape Russian soldiers who refuse to fight to the tree, and later on a Ukrainian Baba Yaga drone drops something. It is some sort of the sacrifice of the Russian army to the gods of war. Guys, we have reports published about the vehicle losses. It's almost equal. Russia lost 17 of the vehicles and Ukraine 16. This analysis I took from this Telegram channel. It is good Telegram channel. They analyze videos from the front lines, drone videos, images, everything, and they publish the real information. And because Russia attacks mostly with infantry, they have less losses in army vehicles. It is interesting that here you can see T-55 tank, very old. It was destroyed. I think it happened in Kherson region. T-62 is also the old tank, by the way. As for Ukraine, BMPs and the rest are MRAPs, armored vehicles. Russia doesn't have the knowledge of that. Well, maybe Ahmad vehicle is similar to Kozak, but Russia doesn't have lots of those. And let's go back to the deep state military map update. I think they have the new release that the Russians advanced in Zeleny High. Yes, it is happening in the Kharkiv region. By the way, Putin said that he is willing to give Ukraine Kharkiv region if Ukraine voluntarily withdraws the forces from Donbass, but we shouldn't trust Russia, not even close. And tomorrow there's going to be the very important meeting in the White House, Washington DC. We'll see how it goes. So yesterday and today Russia propelled towards Boriska Andriivka, advancing from Lozova, and they fully occupied Zeleny High today. So it was yesterday, today once again, yeah. They really want to push to Oskil River to retake this big territory and then advance to Liman and after it southbound to Slavyansk. Plus, they intensify their strikes on Kupiansk, however, their recent attack failed as I showed you. So yes, Russia has ambitious plans, but their plans are being usually kaputted by Ukrainian resistance. As you see here, as you see in Kupiansk, nevertheless, Russia has advantage over Ukraine and they propel in many of the points. By the way, we have positive news coming from the border with Dnipropetrovsk region and Donetsk. Here, Ukraine also sent new reinforcements and Russians were mostly stopped. Yeah, for the last 3 days, I don't see the huge advancement in this spot. And here we have the unique video of the Ukrainian drone unit. This is the Darts Ukrainian drone. It looks like the small airplane. And the Ukraine launched this drone to the Russian base. This is the Melitopol airfield, and this is the drone. This is how it looks. What's the uniqueness of this operation? That the drone locked on the Panzer I-S air defense system, and later on operator just presses the button and drone flies on its own to hit this target very precisely. So despite electronic warfare which is installed in this airfield for sure, this drone hit Panzer I-S. It was confirmed by Ukrainian intelligence later on. So you see, yeah, you lost the signal, but after all, target was kaboomed. And according to Ukrainian officials, intelligence services and Ukrainian President Zelensky, Russia is getting to strike really hard in Donbass, or it could be in Zaporizhia direction. Recently, there were multiple of the small attacks, so it is understandable that Russia is searching again for the weak spot in Ukrainian defense. But we will see how it goes, and guys, there are multiple of the news around Ukraine. I want to tell you about those as well, and it's gonna be in the next video. Stand by, I'm gonna film it today, at least I plan to do it. And now again, thank you so much for your kind support on Patreon. The link for my Patreon page is in the video description below. Thank you again for supporting my motivation. And guys, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.